astray, caught up in the games they play. High-speed chases gone awry, serious turns into pie in the sky. Just out of jurisdiction, laughter and a conviction. Beneath the badge in misguided fiction, here comes the twisted depiction.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Just Out of Jurisdiction podcast. We are back with you. We've got a full table tonight.
This is fun. Our repeat, but we have our new business manager sitting in with us. She's taken over basically on everything, and we like it.
Yeah,
this is what we wanted.
And as you can tell by the lapse in time, we're not good at scheduling. So
we've gotten busy, and now we have a scheduler or manager, and she's with us tonight.
We've got to have handlers. We're not adult enough to do this on our own.
So we have Karen with us tonight. Say hello. You got to at least say hi and talk.
Hello.
But she is taking over. She's going to help us out tremendously.
Whether you like it or not.
Exactly. She's already helped us. But she's not coming from a background that she's not involved in law enforcement or emergencies, or she dispatched for years. It's when I first met her at the Laurel Dispatch Center. And just always enjoyed working with you. It was fun, especially those nights. So
I enjoyed.
We're honored to have you
peeps.
here and then keeping us straight. That's the goal. I don't know if you can, but
She's got her hands full.
so
All eyes focusing on one spot at this table.
we got Doug
Hands
back.
I'm not saying anything though.
He will. He says that every time and then ends up talking a bunch.
Oh,
so
I won't tonight.
We'll see.
All
We'll
ears
see. Yeah,
All ears
we'll see.
tonight.
We'll see. So Doug's back with us, and of course, the man of the hour. We've got Foot back with us.
Good to be here.
Yes, that I've used that dangerous gentleman, and then I find out that there is a guy, and you probably heard of him. He's that Victor Marks guy.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He's got a Bible study called Dangerous Gentleman.
Really?
And I'm going to start
Yeah,
doing
that
it.
guy's good, man.
Yeah, he's the quickest
man,
disarm guy.
quickest,
but I've met him twice. One time in London, and one time at a conference in Cleveland I was at.
Yeah.
And but he's got that, and I thought, man, I said you should have coined that or copyrighted that phrase. But it was like, I was like, man, what a cool saying. I loved it, and then to see, I guess I was on YouTube or something, and then saw him on there. I listened to his podcast a lot, and I was like, dangerous gentleman. All right, there it is again. So I loved it.
Well,
so,
we'll give credit to him. I'm an old dummy. I can't come up with nothing like that.
so what we got?
So today's episode, something that's a little more current than most of our old war stories. If anybody's been following the Crystal Rogers case,
Let's go back now. Back in 2020,
when the Bardstown
when
podcast
came out, it may came out a little bit before. That's when I started listening to it.
that's the only thing that got me through COVID.
We would sit down in the building down at London PD, and 5 or 6 of us just listened to that podcast, because that's all we had to
And
do.
it started out with Jason Ellis's murder.
And, Jason Ellis went to Cumberland, University of Cumberland was down here. And a good friend of mine was his roommate and played baseball with him. So when that happened, I mean, my buddy Wynn was just tore up and just, so that was just such a crazy time, and kind of vulnerable time, because he was like, man, how many times have I got out on getting debris out of the roadway?
Sure.
How many different things you don't think about, how dangerous and how some people just want to hurt us. And one of the saddest things I've ever seen, and then how it not just affected Bardstown, that surrounding area up there, but really hit Williamsburg and even folks here in London. So it was that people don't understand that sometimes, how something happens somewhere affects so many. And I remember then we've had other officers get killed like that, but that one was just such a mystery. And I remember
It
talking to
happened
some-
in what, 2013?
Yeah, 2012, I believe.
2012 is when it actually
somewhere in that
occurred.
time frame. And I remember a detective that was. I was up there right after at a DARE conference or a Safe Schools conference, and one of the detectives with KSP was telling me like they were doing some kind of study about the owls, and they had video. They could hear that shotgun blast going on on those things. So,
That's true. And there's a witness that came out and said, "Well, I got to move that debris."
really,
And somebody moved it back.
Somebody moved it, and then obviously they moved it back to get him.
so that's how they actually. It wasn't just for who came.
Yeah.
Anybody coming up there, any passerby moving that. It was specifically.
It was a
trap for
specific plan, set up well in advance, likely by someone who's very good at planning. And I feel like I got to know the investigators in this. I know the prosecutor, and I don't want to get ahead here and say something inappropriate, but I feel like there'll be some arrests down the road about that one. I feel like. And I feel like there'll be some arrests on the Tommy Ballard murder.
Yeah.
Crystal's dad.
Yeah.
So I just got a lot of confidence in those people, and I know they're working right now. And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I really recommend everybody that's not listened to that podcast, the Bardstown podcast. I think Vault
Studios is who does it.
And
Is that the Shay McAllister?
That is
Shay
Shay
McAllister.
McAllister.
I got to meet her during this trial.
Yeah.
She is truly a quality lady, great journalist. You know, I kind of lost faith in journalism, honestly, but I have to say she's a quality lady. She was there every day, you know, and I watched what she's reported on, so I know the accuracy of it. But you're right, the way she wrote that podcast, you know, and the way she would talk, it was captivating.
Yeah, it was.
And Dylan's probably right during the time of COVID where we were all kind of locked in place listening for stuff. But Shay McAllister was kind of a household name now.
There was many nights.
I can't wait for an update. I'm sure she'll do an update on the
I
trial.
asked her, I said, "You going to write a book?" And she said, "I'm thinking about it." She didn't say, and I know she's not with WHAS anymore. She stepped out and said she's going to devote more time to family. That was
awesome.
recently.
Well, I
in the
know
last
she
month.
did. She did the Bardstown podcast, and then when they done the actual search warrants, she
was
did
back
back
out.
to
Back to
Bardstown.
Bardstown.
But then there was no update after that because the
she-
searches were inconclusive.
So we started with Jason, and I know talking about that, but Bardstown had a series of crazy events that happened.
Yeah.
A couple, you know, if you've listened to the podcast or whatever, and that's really how I knew about it. And, you know, a mother and daughter were killed, seems like right after that.
The home invasion.
Maybe in
stabbing.
14. I'm not sure. I don't want to give a wrong time.
Yeah, and I don't know exact order, so I don't know if that came right after Jason's, and then Crystal's disappearance and
that was
all
in
that.
15. Yeah.
So I think that was the order, and then her dad.
That lady was a school
Yeah,
teacher.
that's the right
Yeah, I
order.
think so.
You had Jason's, because I just re-listened to that podcast the other day. But you had Jason's murder, and then not long after that, you had the home invasion, and then with the 2 murders, and then you had Crystal went missing, and then her dad was murdered.
And Bardstown might be one of the prettiest little cities in Kentucky.
It is.
I think it was
I-
actually named that.
I
One
would
of the
I would
prettiest-
put
Maybe.
I would put them and up there in Odom County that LaGrange with the train going through is 2 of the coolest, quaintest towns around, and so to see
Ironically
that
enough,
happen in there, you know, in those small towns, is crazy.
well, ironically enough, a guy, I guess, hit the courthouse today. Not the judicial center, but the courthouse in downtown Bardstown. Vehicle
Nelson.
versus building, and he died from it. So
no.
high rate of speed's what I'm told, but that's like the second time this year. Knox County, if you'll remember, back in January, the kid ran his car into the building. So I mean, I don't know what it is with vehicle versus buildings now,
These
but
squares, I guess we're not used to that. They're supposed to go
but
straight.
yeah, Bardstown's had more than its fair share of activity for certain.
Hey guys, I just want to take a moment and thank our sponsor. We've got Ascend Wellness. As a family-owned mental health practice in London, Kentucky, they've got over 65 years of combined experience. They specialize in trauma-focused care, offering EMDR therapy for first responders and others impacted by traumatic events. If you're not familiar with that, a lot of our guys have taking the time to do that type of therapy. And it really allows you to kind of get your mind wrapped around the trauma that you may or may not know that you're holding on to. It's helped a lot of the guys that we know. Travis himself has done it and swears by it. Said that he opened up to things he didn't even know that was bothering him. So definitely something you might want to check out. Services include individual, marriage, and family counseling. Let's be honest, as first responders, our marriages, our families sometimes take a second seat or a back seat to the job. So I can't imagine that any of us would ever need marriage counseling or anything to fix the problems at home. Hopefully you don't, but if you do, they're good at what they do, so they can help you out there. Family counseling, MAT, substance abuse counseling, parenting classes, supervised visitation, and medication management, all delivered in a supportive, client-centered environment. They are located at 148 Commercial Drive in London, Kentucky, and Ascend Wellness is here to help you rise. If you are interested in visiting or contacting them, you can find them at ascendwellness.org or call 606-260-8532.
So, Chris, let's get into tell us why you're back. This is going to be a good one.
Well, I enjoyed. My job is I'm a head of security for Administrative Office of the Courts, and part of what I do is provide security for the 7 Supreme Court justices, our 14 Court of Appeal judges, and then I monitor the security of the other 260 district, family, and circuit judges across the Commonwealth. And I work with the sheriff on that. It's certainly not a job I do by myself. Kudos to my sheriffs for helping me with that. And of course, they hire and manage the personnel that provides security for our courthouses. But part of what we do is we step in, high profile, high risk trials, and we assist. We don't come in to take over. Let me state right at the start, Warren County Sheriff's Department likely and honestly didn't even need us.
Right.
But there's some factors about that case that I knew going in, and I talked with the judge about it. Judge Charles Sims, he's a native of Bardstown, just a true gentleman. And he and I talked about it. There were about 18 witnesses for the Steve Lawson trial. That one started end of May, 1st of June, somewhere around in that time frame. And Steve was one of the work hands for Brooks Houck. And the charge was conspiracy and tampering with evidence. When Steve actually confessed that he and his son Joey moved Crystal's car. And there was a flat tire on the way on the parkway. And, of course, he actually confessed to helping move the car and moving the seat forward in an attempt to deceive investigators. The jury found him guilty pretty quick. But anyway, the reason I'm involved is we work with the Sheriff's Department because there were 17 witnesses in that one, and there were 40 witnesses in the Brooks Houck trial. So I didn't want any witness tampering. I didn't want any, I worried about the witnesses. I mean, obviously, we've already talked about maybe some murders that potentially could be connected to this. Somebody shot Tommy Ballard. We don't know why, but it's easy to assume that it was connected because he was meddling around trying to figure out who killed his daughter.
May have found too much.
Yeah. So I thought of every possible security scenario that I could, and I tried to have a contingency for that. I mean, you guys have been supervisors,
Yeah.
I laid awake at night thinking, what could go wrong and what will I do about it? But it ain't about me. I didn't come here to talk about me. But anyway, we worked with the Sheriff's Department.
So it got moved down to Warren County.
Change of venue. Good point. Moved from Bardstown to Bowling Green, about an hour south.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about anybody, but I didn't know this till I went to the trial. The Commonwealth Attorney in Nelson County at that time, he felt like in order to prosecute for murder, there should be a body, a crime scene, or a murder weapon. He didn't have any of those in his case, so that's kind of why the case went stale. It wasn't just that there wasn't evidence there. It was just that there was a lot of circumstantial evidence that didn't have those factors, so he didn't really want to push it. So anyway, the Attorney General got involved, and I don't know if it was Daniel Cameron or Russell Coleman, maybe a little bit of both. And they started applying some resources. sent some investigators down. Shane Young out of E-Town, Hardin County. He's a Commonwealth attorney there. Outstanding guy. I got nothing but respect for that guy. And I'll tell you a little bit more as we go along about him. But he was the prosecutor, and he said, look, yeah, I'll take the case. So he took what he had. But there was some I guess some speculation. There had been some grand jury tampering in that. So I knew it wasn't beyond the players to possibly try to get in. So that was one thing that I talked to the judge about. I said, Judge, I'd like for the identity of the jury. Because, even in a camera pan, you're going to pan the best you can do, you're going to pan the jury.
Yeah.
And then somebody's going to reckon, I know him. And, and then it just increased the risk of the jury and who they are and their identity to the public. And it just makes it a little easier. I'm not saying that they would, but I wanted to be able to say, my guys took control of the jury from the time they arrived every morning. We parked them in a designated area. We escorted them in the building. We got them to the jury room. Nobody from the public touched the jury. And I was glad to say that. But anyway, that's just some of the things that we did. I mean, we weren't the uniforms. We wore the blue blazer. I look like Doug Thomas when I go to work. So, but anyway, handsome. I was blessed. I can't even begin to say how handsome he is tonight.
He's looking good. Down this fight way.
He's got that rough beard going on there. But anyway,
he's not going to say that. He swore he would.
Oh, he will. We'll get him. We'll flip his switch here shortly. But anyway, I was honored. I was kind of worked with Judge to make sure he was safe. We escorted him. He didn't want to let us drive him, so I made sure that we had somebody on him from the time he left the hotel to the time he got back. We tried to, again, and then as the trial came to a conclusion, we can talk about that as we go. But there was a couple of things that come up. Remind us here, Director, to talk about that. I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse, but some stuff come up that was concerning to me, and we had to increase our security around the Commonwealth attorney and the judge, but we had a drone up every day watching the parking lot. Warren County Sheriff's Office, I can't say enough how wonderful they did. But they were, at breaks. Because, I teach court security all across the state. I'll be in Bowling Green Monday, ironically, talking to court security and in-service.
Sounds like they could probably go teach it.
They could do it themselves. But anyway, they did an outstanding job, but they had a drone up before breaks. But what I was going to say, we teach parking lots are where it happens at.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All the parties show up where? Parking lot. Yep. Time you get in the building, there's a little bit of security in the building. At the worst, but parking lots, I teach guys, gals, keep an eye on your parking lots because that's where if it's going to go down, it's going to happen there.
I agree.
So that's why on breaks and before and the conclusion of each day, we had a drone up watching. Looking, anything out of the ordinary, any anomalies that stood out. So it went flawlessly. The only thing we had a jury during sentencing. One of the jury members in the Houck Lawson second trial, she got sick. I think she was just overcome with emotion and she got sick. But I had a paramedic staged in the back hallway, and I hooked them up, and within minutes we had her back rolling.
That's awesome.
And so it worked out good.
That's the things I wouldn't think of. This was a very high profile.
Yeah, it was.
Because this has been going on now for 10 years, a little better than that.
Actually, the 10-year anniversary of her disappearance occurred during the trial.
Right. That's so, it never ran cold. That's the thing about this. It wasn't like a cold case. It just, sounds like a lot of investigation still continuing, but I never heard of this going like a cold case file or anything like that. It was just a
the Ballard family, Crystal's mom and brother, just sweet people, just good country people. Yeah, and they kept it going. Her mom kept it going. You all saw it. Yeah. I mean, the hero's welcome that they got after that trial was over and they returned back to Bardstown. People lined up on the street. Yeah. That just doesn't happen.
No.
And they, so they're listen, I got to meet them. Just good people. And I hate what they've had to endure.
And you felt for them.
You did.
This whole time. And she did. I mean, in the podcast, they did such a good job of connecting with the listeners. You know, you're like, oh my gosh, the emotions. So when this all went to trial finally, because every little bit, it was such big news that Louisville, and we don't really get the Louisville news down here. If it bleeds over something huge, it will spill over. But a Bardstown murder will not hit London, Kentucky. If it's not, sometimes it will. But this one has reached.
Oh yeah.
And all the updates. And I've got FBI buddies that would be like, "Hey, we're heading to." It was not any. It was such a big deal around.
Yeah.
And now I think it's even bigger. I'm sure it's nationally recognized because the podcast was such a hit. But there's a lot of emotions, even for salty old guys like us, of saying, "Where's this justice at? When is this going to happen?" We all know who did this, and we all know what probably happened. And maybe not everything that happened, but there was obviously foul play and just guilt.
Of course, their defense was that the government wanted him arrested. I'm talking about Brooks. The government wanted him arrested. And listen, I respect Brian Butler. He was the head attorney for Brooks Houck. Houck spent about $2.5 million on his attorney team. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but I guess it is now. And then Steve Schroering. Schroering represented a couple of those police officers and the Breonna Taylor guy. So, I mean, they're the Breonna Taylor deal. And they're just good men. They were hired to do a job, and they did it. Their team, I mean, you could tell they had planned it, articulated their defense, and they did a good job. But I mean, they're good people, but ultimately it is what it is. And I think the jury saw through all that. The jury, honestly, we always joke that jurors, I mean, they get paid $12.50 a day. It's laughable, but we always joke that, they'll stick around to get their free lunch because, we always give, in any trial I've ever worked like that, we get them pizza. We start ordering pizza about 11 o'clock. I think that jury was ready to come back before they ate their pizza.
Wow.
So, I say pizza. They actually ate sandwiches that day. But anyway.
It's going to be a short day. Let's just get the
sandwiches. They were, listen, I'll say this. This is my opinion only. I watched that jury and how quickly they came to that decision. Maybe 4 hours.
Wow.
And on a circumstantial murder case, that just doesn't happen. They came back, they delivered it, and I believe if they could have checked the box of the death penalty, they'd have gave it to him. Now, that wasn't an option.
Right.
But he ended up getting 20 years. He'll be eligible for parole. He got life, but he'll be eligible for parole in 20 years.
Okay.
So
I didn't know if the sentencing, I had not heard
sentencing
that.
is next month. Judge Sims wants us to come back down. But yeah, I mean, there was an interesting case. I was thankful that I had it right there every day. I tried to be Judge Sims' personal bailiff and try to help him out with anything that I could. And so it was good. Bowling Green's a great place to have it because the city's kind of spread out. You got several motels for converging families and participants in the case. So
I watched the media swarm, the family after. Mm-hmm. And they did a good job of just staying silent and, letting I think it was the right thing not to make a statement at that time and let the gravity of the whole situation just kind of play out. And,
sure.
That they were probably...
Well, there's a side story there, and we told the media. We sent them the trial happened on the 4th floor of the courthouse. We told the media, if anybody wants to talk to you, we'll send them down to you. So go stage up in the 2nd floor district courtroom. Well, they went down there. Well, the jury said, no, we don't want to. I usually tell them, I ask the jury members, I said, any of y'all want to talk to the media? If you do, get in the back of the line. Those of you that don't, we will get you to your car and get you out of here. None of them said, no, we don't want to talk to the media. So we got the jury out. Well, then here come the Houck family. Houck family said, we don't want to talk to the media. So I escorted Rosemary and Rhonda, the sister, and Rosemary's boyfriend, and we got them out the back door. And by this time, though, the media, I guess, thought we were, and we really didn't. I mean, if anybody wanted to talk to the media, we would have sent them down there, but none of them did. Even the defense team didn't want to, prosecutor didn't want to. So we got everybody out. Well, it came Ballard's time to come out, the Ballard family. And that was, I guess, the media started smelling the mouse. So they were outside waiting. And that's when you saw what they converged on us. And, and Kobe, the deputy down there, he kind of had to yell at Lee seriously from 18
I saw it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he was like, you saw me laughing because I was chuckling at Kobe because Kobe's a good fella. And I know it pained him to do that, but yeah, he's like, get back.
Yeah.
And his hateful dog voice. But yeah,
Lee kind of got up in the.
Lee was encroaching in the group there, and she didn't need to do that, but I'm sure she got caught up in the emotion, and it was kind of historic.
They've been covering this, in a big event like that, and you finally feel like, hey, there's a conclusion here. There's some justice that's been done, and everybody gets wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't blame them. And we was talking about defense. I remember finally thinking, they've got their job. I can't personally be so mad at these folks when they have that right to have a defense. Why am I getting mad at somebody doing their job? And I remember that. It's like, why am I being so petty?
They were well represented. Lawson was well represented. I got to know the attorneys. I'm smart enough to know a good attorney from a bad one. And I can tell you that, both those guys were well represented with defense attorneys. The presentations were good. It is what it is, Now, this case has been well covered. And you may have an argument to say, well, the jury knew more about the case than they let on, and during voir dire, or maybe the jury didn't do what the judge told them to do and not research it. But look, folks, here's the deal: we're in 2025, and when you can research anything with the thumb of your hand in a matter of minutes, you're going to do it. Now the judge told them every day, do not research, do not conduct your own research. It has to be specific to what you hear in this courtroom. But I just feel like that if I'm sitting on a jury, I probably ain't going to listen to the judge. I'm going to go home and do my own research. Now, I don't know that they did that, but I just feel like that in this day and time where research is so accessible, I feel like, so maybe they knew more than they didn't. I don't know. I'm not saying they did or they didn't. I'm just saying that likely in this day and time with information is available and to your point, as well as it's been covered.
Yeah. I don't know anybody in Kentucky
that wouldn't be familiar with it already.
Yeah. I think
now
that's
the judge
thing.
did it in voir dire. He did a good job. He split them up in 3 or 4 sections. And he gave them a questionnaire, and he said, if you know nothing about this case, you're in this group. If you've heard about this case, but if you haven't formed an opinion, you're in this group. And if you've heard about the case and you formed an opinion, you're in this group. And that's how he kind of started laying his foundation, which I thought it was a masterful way to do it.
I would say the middle that's heard about it, because I would say that the folks that didn't hear about it, they're lying.
Yeah, I think that's been the assertion by the defense that they lied about it. But I don't know. How do you prove that? You're going to make your jury take a lie detector test? You're going to interrogate your jury?
So with technology that's changed everything, social media, the coverage, our 24/7 news coverage on everything. Our police and our from wherever putting out info, arrest before it's they've had their day in court. How is it now time for the courts and to make some changes on how they do things? And can we? Can that happen?
And that's a good question, Travis, because a lot of people know this. Karen and I talked about it. The prosecutor in the second trial could not mention the Steve Lawson trial.
And how hard could that be?
And now we talked about Steve Lawson in the second trial. When we talked about some of the things that had been testified to in the first trial, but the jury was never told, hey, Steve Lawson's a co-conspirator, and he was found guilty 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So that's my fault with the justice system. Don't yell at me about facts and truth when you only want parts of it. The parts you want to allow the jury to hear.
Right.
The reality is, and I guess I guess the powers that be and the jurist or judiciary, whatever, they decided, well, it violates his, 5th and 14th Amendment rights if you let the jury know. But the reality is it was fact that they found Steve Lawson guilty, but the jury wasn't allowed to know that. So I guess they're going to say, well, they researched it too much. But I'm going to say, well, that wasn't allowed in, and it probably should have been because it's a fact. Mm-hmm. And then, put the facts out there. And if it slants the jury, then so be it. It's a fact. It's not like it's an opinion.
It would be evidence.
How do you
but that didn't come in.
Is that how you say that?
Sequester
a jury. And I mean, in today's time, taken away, I mean, you wouldn't get anybody. I don't know, like, I know everything. I've already formed my opinion.
Yeah,
because you take away, you lock them up in a hotel for whatever during that time. It just don't happen anymore.
It just doesn't. At expense, and it's just really hard. It's hardship on everybody. And you're talking about a 10-day trial, actual 10 days. That's a lot.
That's a long time.
And in the heart of summer when most people are going on vacation, I mean, that's tough, I know there'll be things that they're going to try to appeal and, we'll see what happens. But
that's what I was going to ask next, kind of is the will that, and you've answered it pretty much, because of the amount of publicity that the case has got. I mean, we're all 5 of us sitting here have listened to the podcast, have done. How's this not? I mean, I get it. They're going to go to appeal, and they're going to have a good chance of getting at least another. Maybe,
I mean, they could.
Of anything I've heard of, especially in Kentucky.
I mean, they could
get another trial, or at least get it heard.
I mean, it goes to the Supreme Court. Anything over 20 years goes to the Supreme Court automatically. So the House will go to the Supreme Court. We'll see what the 7 decide on. They'll take everything. They'll listen to it. And,
that'd be interesting. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
It will be interesting. I was in the county yesterday. I won't say where I was at, but I was in the county yesterday at a couple of the judges in their building looking at some of their electronic equipment, and she said, "Hey, when you get time, I want to hear all the juicy details on." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am. When I get time, I'll tell you." So to your point, it's an intriguing case. People want to know the details.
We got another one going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's
one in Whitesburg. It's going to be
probably likely will be in Bowling Green. Probably in the spring of next year. Yeah. Judge Coron is the judge on that case, and I don't know that it's going to Bowling Green yet, but I suspect that it could go there, and it'll be an interesting case for sure.
It's just like that, though.
Have me back, and we'll talk about that one.
That's going to be a good one too.
Absolutely.
I've just got
that one intrigued a lot of the national.
It did.
That hit pretty quick.
It did. I'm blessed to be able to sit in the seat that I do and get to take in what I take in. I'm honored.
So with hearing everything that you've heard through that trial, I know the podcast kind of hinted at it, or that was the big question: was Jason's related to all the others? Are all the others in that podcast tied together? I don't think
they have a clear motive in Jason's murder. I think it's a known fact that Nick Houck and Jason, about 2 weeks before Jason was killed,
didn't yee and haw very well.
But they had a little incident at roll call. I won't go a lot into that, but I think it's a known fact by the parties that there was some friction there. Now, does that make a guy a suspect in murder? I mean, I think it makes him a person of interest. Mm-hmm. And I think I'd be foolish to sit here and tell you they're not looking at Nick Houck. Nick Houck, former police officer. You look at the components of that Jason Ellis murder. Someone planned that very well. And so, but does that make him a suspect? That alone, person of interest. That's what we'll say. So I think you're starting to look at the whole totality of the circumstances. I don't think you can not say Nick Houck's not a dangerous man and very capable of committing such a murder. Does that mean he did it? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I think he is.
I really thought there would be something with him on the crystal Rogers case. as
Well, his name was mentioned. Now, he's an unindicted co-conspirator. It's funny you say that, Travis, because his name came up a lot. He was the white car, which I'm sure Karen's going to ask me about. You know, Nick helped sell that car. It was him alone. Brooks didn't have anything to do with the white car. And I'll fill in the details when you're ready on that. And even in sentencing, the prosecutor looked right at Rosemary Houck, who's sitting in the audience, and said she wanted her dead. And I'm thinking, how do you do that without getting a lawsuit filed on you? But I guess when you're an unindicted co-conspirator, that gives the prosecutor a little bit more leverage in identifying you and mentioning your name in court. I don't know. Those are legalities that are above my knowledge base.
Right. Because I know Nick came up. Did he not? He called Brooks during one of his police interviews.
He did.
And
He told him
to shut up.
Yeah,
pretty
he told
much.
him that if they're going to try to screw you, you better. And so Brooks was like, "So you're telling me to leave?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm telling you to leave." So, you know, and then of course we all know that Nick, his police car was seized and sent to the lab, and so I mean, there's a lot of things you can't overlook Nick as a player in this, and I know. I'll just go ahead and say it. Nick Houck, he practices long-range shooting. I've got neighbors that have specifically told me that when he shoots a report, about 2 seconds later, you hear it ping, hit the metal. Well, what's that tell you?
He's a long way away.
He's a long way away. So he practices long-range shooting. Now, again, can I indict a guy based on that? No, but you take the totality of the circumstances and you're starting to piece together what looks like something's not right.
If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck.
We're all old cops.
Yeah.
And we got a young dispatcher sitting with us here. But listen, we're just sitting around talking, and I don't want to wrongly incriminate anybody. But again, all these things are documented, and so we'll see what happens. I don't know. They may not ever be an indictment. Currently, he's not indicted. He's just referred to as an unindicted co-conspirator. He and his mom, Rosemary. So, but his name did come up during the white car, and that.
Now, from what I understand, that white car was sold that same week.
It was. I'll tell you the story on the white car.
Yeah, that's true, the white car.
That was Granny's car, correct?
That was Granny's car.
Okay.
There was shortly about, probably 3 or 4 months after Crystal went missing, Tommy Ballard posted on Facebook that he was looking for a white car, possibly a Buick. Well, finally, and the reason where the white car came into play, there were some coon hunters that were hunting the night of July the 3rd in the farm next to the Brooks Houck farm. Well, it was raining, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, they walked up on a white car. And they thought it was kind of odd because it was in the middle of nowhere, and obviously, it looked like a decent vehicle. And one of the coon hunters testified that it was from Nelson County. So it took them 3 or 4 or 5 months to piece together that that was the night that girl went missing, and we were next door to that farm. So the coon hunters reached out to Tommy Ballard and said, "Hey, this white car was here." So Tommy put out a Facebook post. Well, it took everybody in Nelson County and the investigators to realize, Brooks and Nick's grandma had a white car. Well, they go to get a search warrant, look for the white car, and the white car sold. 2 or maybe a day or 2 before. So they find the car in Louisville. They brought a car dealer from Louisville. I thought this was intriguing, but the car dealer came in and testified that Nick Houck and the grandmother of the car had come in and they wanted to sell the car. And the guy said, "Okay, what are you asking?" So, "We want to sell the car." And the car dealer said, "Well, I need to look at it so I can assess the value." And Nick Houck said, "No, you can't look inside the car." Well, now, who does that, And that's what this guy testified to. So, again, I thought, that's interesting. So they ended up getting the car. The car was in a storage lot somewhere. And one of the detectives ran across a guy, a cadaver dog guy. They were at the NRA convention, I guess, 2017 or 18 or somewhere around in there. My timeline's maybe a little wrong, but
like up in Louisville.
Yeah, they were, and so one of the detectives who was familiar with the case, I guess, bumped into a guy and his dog at the NRA convention. He had advertising on the back of his shirt, "Hey, I'm a cadaver dog." So the guy says, "Hey, let's see how good your dog is." So he, on a random, he picks him up the next morning. the detective said he didn't tell him anything about the case. He didn't identify the car. You know, and canine handlers, you all know them. You've worked with them. They don't. They're pretty straight up. They don't want that information because they want to know that their dog is capable and competent to do.
Unless you're doing it in front of a bunch of dare kids.
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
I can't miss this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, they show up next day at this storage lot, and the dog alerts on the car.
Yes.
On the trunk, on the rear of the car. So, and I think there was a hair found in there, and they couldn't do a DNA comparison and say that it was Crystal's. They said it kind of had similarities, but it fell short of an actual 100% match. But y'all know how that is, man. Very few cases are made on DNA. I mean, I know Hollywood loves it, but the reality is in the real world, it just doesn't happen all that often. But that's the story of the white car. And Nick and Grandma helped get rid of that car after it appeared on Facebook that people were looking for it. So, again, Mr. Houck, if you're listening, I don't know, man. It's looking to me like it.
Yeah,
the finger's going to be pointing your way. But, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he might be able to avoid prosecution, but I just feel like and that came up. His name was mentioned several times throughout the trial. So, again, I guess being an unindicted co-conspirator, there's certain liberties that the prosecution has.
Did they ever land on a solid motive?
Never did. Well, a couple witnesses came in that worked for Brooks and that knew Brooks or knew Rosemary. Rosemary wanted her dead, didn't like her hair, didn't like her. Brooks had told some people that he wouldn't lose Eli. Eli's the child in common. He was about 2 years old at the time of the disappearance. You know, there was just some that kind of led us to believe that there'd been some talking and some people had overheard some conversations. But that Rosemary didn't like her, and I told Karen this, and to me the most compelling piece of evidence, as I sat and listened there for 2.5 weeks on the second trial, was they brought in the neighbor of Crystal Rogers in her subdivision, and she lived across the road, and the prosecutor asked her, said, "How well do you know Crystal?" And he said, "I know her well." Said, "Her kids come to my house, my kids go to her house. We see each other every day." Prosecutor said, "Okay, tell me what you saw." And it was about 4 days after Crystal went missing. She said, "I thought it was odd because I was afraid, Crystal's gone missing. My best friend's gone missing, and I'm afraid a serial killer's on the loose." And she said, all of a sudden I noticed one afternoon that Rosemary pulled up in her car and Nick pulled up in his police cruiser. And they pulled in, but then they got out for a minute and they talked, and then they backed out and then backed in the driveway. So we couldn't see what they were doing. And they went in the house and they got some stuff and they put it in the trunk of their car. And the prosecutor said, "Okay, what else did you see?" And she said, "Well, the thing I thought was odd," and again, this is not fabricated, this is raw eyewitness testimony. The young lady said, "Well, I'll tell you what I saw. I saw Rosemary go over. Crystal had some pretty purple flowers in her flower garden, and I saw Rosemary walk over and pull those flowers up and throw them in the trash can." Now, boys, Ralph and Sue Ellen didn't raise no dummy. I'm going to tell you right now, when I heard that, I'm like, bazinga.
She wanted her.
And this was just a few days.
This was 3 or 4 days. Now, here, look, and Rosemary, I walked her out. She was nice to me, I ain't going to lie. I was afraid somebody might snap a picture. If my picture had to be snapped, I'm glad it was with the Ballard family. But anyway, she was complimented. She said, "Thank you." And I said, "Yes, ma'am. Have a good day." But the thing about that is, the mother of your grandbaby is gone missing. 3 days earlier, you have done nothing to help locate her up until this point. And their defense was, well, the sheriff told us not to get involved. Well, you've done nothing to help locate her 3 or 4 days after she's gone missing, and all you care about is some landscaping and flowers and landscape, and you want to get rid of them? To me, that paints a picture of I know she ain't coming back.
Well, that's what this is my question. If how do you know she's not coming back?
Yeah.
How do you know? What were the bags that they were carrying?
Nobody knows.
And Crystal may show up tomorrow.
She may.
But, as far as like that week, nobody knew where Crystal was. So why would they expect her not to come back?
Yeah. It just, to me, what are you carrying about little purple flowers
Yeah.
at the girl's house for?
Well, and furthermore, most people who think somebody's missing or have lost a loved one, that's the last thing they do is go through things and get rid of their
And we're talking
belongings.
4 or 5 days after the
Especially
car
if
was
it's something,
found.
yeah.
You know, the car, the speculation is, and the you know, Shane, prosecutor, alluded to it in his closing, they were taking the car to get rid of it, but it had a flat tire. And the flat tire, and they had a hard time getting somebody, because there was some testimony that they had reached out to a gentleman by the name of Charlie Girdley. And Charlie was just an old work hand, just an old rough. To sit here, we'd probably laugh, cut up, but he's just an old rough guy. He's had a rough, he'll tell you, I've been addicted about my whole life to alcohol and drugs. But anyway, Charlie testified that they called him wanting him to come move the car, and they bring a trailer that had broke down, and he's like, I'm drunk and I can't come. So but they couldn't get it moved, so they left it there. And then, they brought in some witnesses who saw it, who put it on the side of the BG Parkway at like 10:30. And then the guy came back the next morning and he saw the car again. So they've got a time that the car was there. And there was a lot of chatter back and forth about cell phone, location. And that, to me, that was good evidence. The homicide detective from LMPD, he came down and I think he helped the case.
Did they geofence it? Is that
they were saying that the defense was like, well, yeah, they were looking at prisms on the towers, and it doesn't always. It's supposed to hit the closest tower, but the detective said that's not always the case.
Sometimes it bumps.
They brought in their
traffic,
expert. Yeah. Honestly, I guess I didn't pay enough attention in science class to be. But I'm like, I really don't need this to make my mind up.
No.
The lay witnesses was what spun it for me. Like, Now I'll be honest. I thought, in full disclosure, I hadn't listened to the podcast. I didn't know who Shay McAllister was, and now I did watch in anticipation of the trial. I did watch that Oxygen Network. Yeah. I think it's like a 6-part series. Mm-hmm. I did watch it just to kind of familiarize myself with the names and the players and possibly help me better do my job. So I knew that going in, but I didn't dwell in the case that much. But I always was under the impression that Houck, in a fit of rage, killed her, and he used all these jokers to help get rid of the body. But after setting that testimony, truly convinced that they planned to get rid of her long before they did. He said
that surprises me, because I would have thought it was a fit of rage, just a domestic.
I think so. He planned it. And I asked the jury members as we were walking out. I said, so tell me, you all can talk now. What was the most compelling piece of evidence for you? And one of the elderly women on the jury said, well, I'll tell you what, his timeline was awful. Well, kudos to the detective that worked the case initially. He was a detective with the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. He brought in Houck after they found her car. Brought in Houck maybe 2 days later. And gave him a piece of paper and said, I need to know everywhere you were on July the 3rd. Well, he wrote like 8 pages. And they brought in witness after witness that said, I didn't see him on July the 3rd, or he didn't come see me. I wasn't with him on July the 3rd. So that's part of it. But his phone location, the geofencing, showed him at his mama's farm all day long. And it showed moving on his mama's farm. Because there's more accuracy if you go through a Google than if you just go through the phone itself. And he was a Google. Now, Nick, here we go, talking about Nick again, unindicted co-conspirator. But Nick turned his phone off. They brought his girlfriend in. He was supposed to be helping her move. Him and her were moving from one house to another. And he went
radio silent
for a day and a half. Happened to be on July the 3rd. Brooks was at the farm all day long from 8 to 4 doing something. Now, Crystal had told some of her friends she was excited because she's going to have a date with Brooks and we're going to be kid-free. Well, she was telling everybody, hey, I finally get to go on a date with my man, and she was excited. Well, when Brooks spoke to the detective about what y'all did on your date night, he said, well, we went to the farm and walked around. for 2 hours and hiking. And so it was raining. That was the point that a lot of the witnesses kept saying. Apparently it poured the rain on July the 3rd, 2015. I don't know, but I guess so anyway, they kind of alluded to the fact that, that was probably where he killed her at on the farm, because he took her back later, his phone and his phone she ended up going off the radar around 9:30 because she liked to play games. Mm-hmm. And of course they brought in the Cellbrite expert who said, I can say that her phone stopped working. She was on Facebook from this time to this time. She was on Candy Crush maybe on this time to this time. And at 9:28, so it appeared in my mind that her life ended right around between 9 and 10 o'clock on July the 3rd, 2015. I think that's the conclusion you can draw. Now, her phone powered off. It ran out of battery. Powered back on about midnight or something and immediately went off again. Now, there was a charger found next to the phone in the car. So, I don't know. Another piece of evidence that probably roasted him was on the July the 4th. Her family was looking for her. Mom had called her, texted her. Kids had called and texted her. Where you at? Where you at? Well, they started calling Brooks. Have you seen Mom? Texting Brooks. Have you seen Mom? Where's Mom? And he wouldn't answer none of them. He wouldn't take their call and he wouldn't answer their text. Now, you can say, well, I was busy. Well, the only phone call he answered that day was from his mom.
Yeah.
Rosemary called him, and he answered her, but he didn't want to take. And Shane did a good job of highlighting that point. Shane said he didn't want to talk to them because he knew once he did, the bet was off, and they would start looking for him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he emphasized that point. I was proud of him, man. He nailed that one home.
Was the mom's phone call at the same time?
Oh,
in the same time.
Yeah, the same time frames.
So
shortly before,
so
and shortly
it just
after.
goes to prove that
He didn't want to talk to family because
if he talked to them, then everybody's going to come in. Yeah. So he had he basically
he had to push it out as far as he could.
Now they talk about on the podcast that they bring up something about taxes and some underhand cash deals and stuff. Was that?
I think in
that she'd
19 or 20, well, in 2019 or 20, somebody fraudulently used her name and social security number to try to scam the government. Maybe, I don't even know that was even brought up much in the second trial. Somehow it was brought up in the first trial, but I didn't hear a lot said about that in the second trial. So there's been no cite. Now we can talk about that, because I thought that was a pretty good piece of evidence, but there was a guy a reputable citizen who reported that he saw her in a car a couple days after they found the car on the parkway. He called in, they were getting hundreds of calls, and the deputy testified to that. He said, we were getting more calls than we could take in. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, this couple said, we saw her on such and such road in Nelson County. She looked like she was crying. So that was kind of a unique. And that kind of took it off Brooks, in the interview. But one of the most another compelling piece of evidence, not getting in any of the science of the cell phones, was during one of the search warrants in 2019 or 21. They did a search warrant for Rosemary's house and maybe Brooks' house. I don't remember. Anyway, they found 3 video cassette recorders. They were in the pants pocket in a closet.
Voice recorders.
Little small voice recorders. Yeah. Well, they listened to those voice recorders, and it was the Houcks recording the grand jury testimony. Well, the knucklehead dumb criminal award, you know how those things are. Sometimes they turn on and you don't want them to. Well, it recorded some conversation about that maybe they didn't. And I took a picture of the transcript. It was played to the jury. Now, a lot of it was inaudible because it's in a pocket rubbing around. But it said the recording on July the 9th, 2015, Brooks says to Rosemary, it was a conversation between Brooks and Rosemary Houck about the blanket there was a blanket that was found in the back of Nick's cruiser when it was.
Yeah.
So they were recording people. Of course, their testimony was, well, we were paranoid. Everybody was out to get us, so we wanted to start recording our interactions. Okay, whatever. On July the 9th, 2015, a conversation between Brooks and Rosemary Houck about the blanket. Brooks says, so they took his car from him? Rosemary says, you know that blanket in the trunk? He was worried about that at first. Does it have anything on it? Rosemary says to Brooks. Brooks says, Rosemary says, okay, what about that thing from yesterday? Brooks says, don't matter. Now, this is conversation going on between the chief suspect and his mama. Mm-hmm. They accidentally recorded it. So fast forward another, Brooks says, there's Teal right there. Rosemary says, Casey? Brooks says, yeah. And then Rosemary says some kind of comment. Brooks says, what's that? And then Rosemary says, I wish my windows were black. Now there was, and then Brooks says, blacked out, and he chuckles. So this is 6 days after the wife of his mother disappears, and he's chuckling about having tinted windows. It's easy to villainize these people. Now I know their defense did a good job, but there's just so much. And then another July the 9th, 2015, Brooks says to, I think, he's talking to somebody, I don't know if they ever determined who, and he says a bad tip's jacked them all up. Well, he's referring to that tip that family said, well, we saw her. So he knew that, they were forming a timeline that he's the one, July the 3rd is the day. Now all of a sudden this good reputable couple comes in and they're saying that, well, we seen her like on July the 6th or 7th on this road, and they were just good people. They were just mistaken. But Brooks tells probably Nick or Rosemary the bad tips jacked them all up.
A bad tip.
A bad
How does
tip.
he know it's a bad tip?
Well, he knew because Snow had told him in that interview that you all have seen. Mm-hmm. Snow didn't tell Brooks that the tip did not pan out until after July the 11th. So he knew it was a bad tip.
Before
The police
told.
knew it was a bad tip.
Before he was told.
So, little tidbits like that you miss and coverage, but to me, that's pretty compelling.
That takes me back to the car. Her car.
Yeah.
And this may go back to the Stephen Lawson. Brooks Houck was supposed to have asked Stephen Lawson or Joey one to move that car, correct?
That's
okay. True. Move it from where?
Well, there was testimony, move it from Brooks Houck's farm.
Okay.
Move it, we don't know where.
Don't know where from.
There was some testimony that one of the witnesses said she overheard. It was the girlfriend of Stephen Lawson. Now, Stephen is the father of Joey Lawson.
Right.
Now, the girlfriend of Stephen Lawson testified to overhearing a conversation between Stephen and Joey that they were going to move the car and help move the body for $50,000.
Okay.
That money was never found, and the bank documents didn't reveal that. But let's face it, here we're dealing with meth heads. Right. I mean, we all not to degrade
and that was something
people with addiction, but the reality is we're not dealing.
They're not very reliable.
I hadn't heard where they were moving it from and why. Okay.
Well,
they not question.
Steve testified on his own in his trial.
Yes.
And he testified that he was at the farm, and then Joey pulled up in the car and said, "Get that out! You need to get that out of here. Get that out of here."
Okay.
And of course, the prosecutor's like, "Why did you want to get rid of it? Why did you say that? Get it out of here." And he said, "Well, he said we just didn't need that car up here." He tried to cover up the fact that he knew they didn't need to be around that car. Well, anyway, Steve indicated that Joey told him to move the car. So Joey was driving Crystal's car down the parkway. Steve testified that the car had a flat, pulled off the side of the road, and that when Joey got out of the car, Steve moved the seat forward. Now, he said, well, just that the seat was, I knew that Joey was taller than Crystal. Well, he admitted to me right there he was trying to deceive investigators. He wanted it to look like that Crystal left that car as it was.
Right.
Now, that didn't come out in the second trial, but that was a big piece of the first trial but understand there had been so many investigators that had interrogated these people. They lied, they lied, they tell the truth, they tell a partial truth, they lie again. But during one of the interviews where he probably told the truth, that's when he admitted, yeah, I followed my son, he drove that car. I mean, you all know how it is. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will tell the truth and sometimes they won't. If they think they can fool you as an interviewer. They'll do it, but I guess whoever was interviewing was able to peel back some of those onion layers of defense, and he told the truth. And he said, yeah, we moved the car. But that didn't come out in the second trial. The second trial, they probably spent the better part of 2 days talking about cell phone triangulation.
Well,
It
that's
didn't
a
matter
distraction.
because I had the knowledge in the first trial.
Yeah.
Well, the dude that moved the car admitted to it. So why are we going on? But again, that's that part of that justice system
That
stuff
wouldn't
that
allow that
annoyed
to
me.
Yeah.
You know,
And
we wasted 2 days of our time talking
because
about
they can, because you can tear
admissible.
Yeah, exactly.
you can lose a jury talking
can.
over their head about
Yeah.
stuff that they don't
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
and you can, if you can distract them or preoccupy
Yep.
them, and I know as bad ADHD as I am, it don't take much, and I'm a squirrel about.
That's why we have a manager.
Well, let me ask you this. This
It's
is another
interesting.
question I have that I've not heard answered or I've just not found it. Now, Crystal Rogers' other children, they interviewed their dad. Okay. Now, that day, the 3rd of July, did Crystal Rogers drop the kids off with their father, or did the father pick it up? pick the
That I
kids
don't
up?
know.
Because I think I've heard it both ways.
They were. I think that's pretty much Crystal's husband's alibi. Now she was still married to the Rogers guy,
Correct.
and she was shacked up and living with Brooks on and in, on again, off again. But I think his alibi was, well, he had the kids. They had 2 kids in common. She had a kid, maybe 2 kids before
Right,
the Rogers,
right.
and then of course Eli. So he had 5 kids.
Right.
So the kids were with her husband.
Right. But she was at Walmart.
She was at Walmart with Eli and maybe one of the other girls,
Okay.
and I guess I don't know. I don't know.
And
That's a
then
good
did she
question.
drop? That's what I'm saying. Then I heard something about his testimony saying that she was showing a house
Yeah, he
for
didn't.
rental.
Yeah,
and she
she.
got home about 5:30.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, did she have? That's what I'm saying. Did she drop the child that was not Eli?
Well, there was Rhonda, who's the sister of Brooks and Nick, testified that she had Eli with her at the Science Museum in Louisville on July the 3rd. But if you Google when the Science Museum in Louisville, it says it was not open to the public on July the 3rd. So I don't know.
And then there's Walmart.
The Walmart footage, and I don't know if Eli was. You may all know, but I remember seeing the footage, but I don't know who was with her during that footage. But yeah, I think the defense made an issue that they didn't really look at the Rogers guy as a suspect or none of her other. But in reality, I think that the kids were with them,
I'm
and
just
that
trying to
was.
figure
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out that timeline on where
But
the
then-
kids were and how they got to where they were.
Brooks says that Eli was with them the night. They all went. He went to bed about midnight, and that Crystal was playing on her phone, and that Eli routinely would not go to bed until Crystal went to bed. And then Brooks says, "Well, I woke up Saturday morning, and the kids lay next to me, and I don't know where Crystal is, and she's done this before."
But what their testimony too about one of the other children
Well, none of the
trying
other
to
children.
find.
Yeah,
Get
the
up
oldest
with-
girl would admit that's the one that called Brooks on
Okay,
Saturday
yes,
and said, "Hey,
yes.
you seen Mom?" And he wouldn't take her call.
Okay,
So-
yeah. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
He
Is how
did.
did those kids get
It was
distributed?
testified to that he didn't like the other children,
And
that
especially
he would pay more attention to the Eli than he would the stepkids.
Yeah, that's
So-
what kind of confused me too. Is
Yeah.
how did those kids get distributed
Yeah, I don't know. That's
before their farm trip?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah.
She had a basketball team. I mean, that's a bunch. That's
She-
a bunch
she
of
did.
kids.
She did.
That's
And especially if they kept the kids most of the time, and it kind of sounded that way almost.
But and I'll tell you this is something the public don't know, and I don't know if I should tell it or not, but I'm going to because I want to.
I like your style.
Well,
Exclusive.
mainly the reason I want to do this, I want to commend Shane Young because you all have worked trials, you've been involved in investigation. There's always more to the story than what we can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things aren't allowed in. Well, the Friday, it was the 4th of July this year. We monitored Brooks Houck's outgoing phone calls, and for those of you that are all about defendants' rights, just so you know, when you go to jail, your phone calls are not private.
Absolutely.
So I made the decision.
What?
when we set it up with the Warren County Jail, I want to know what that dude's saying. Because if there's something going on, I want to be ahead of it.
Right.
So I had one of my coordinators every night. And he's a nosy little fella. He's a retired trooper, and he's nosy and perfect guy for it. Eat up with it. He was wearing me out. Send me the code because in order to log into this program, I have to be the administrator, and he would make the request, and the code would get sent to me, and then I would give it to him, and then he would get online and listen to Houck's phone conversation. Well, there was a conversation on 4th of July. And here's the timeline. The defense had rested that day. I'm sorry, the day before. July the 3rd, the defense rested. We were going to be off the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. They would come back on the 7th, and we would start with closing arguments. Well, and then again, I'm just telling this because I want to highlight Shane Young and what just a great man he is. We intercepted a conversation between Nick and Brooks. Nick is at Rhonda's house. And Nick is at Rhonda's house, and Nick says to Rhonda, "You're going to take care of that, aren't you?" And Rhonda, I guess, says yes. She nods. And Nick's talking, and he says to Brooks, he says, "Yeah, listen, we're going to take care of that, and then we're going to let your attorneys do whatever." Okay, what are we talking about here? Because the trial's in essence over with. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, Brooks abruptly hangs up the phone. I felt like that he was hanging up the phone is saying, "Shut up, dummy, they're listening."
Yeah.
And you can hear the recording say, "The caller has left the conversation." So I felt like Nick forgot for a moment that he was, so what was he talking about? What we going to take care of? So I called the detectives, I called Desi, I called the prosecutor, the prosecutor called me, he said, "Foot, what do you think?" And I said, "Shane, I think we need to, I'm going to tighten the security on the judge, and I think we need to tighten security on you." And Shane still has security. But Shane moved his wife and kids out of his house. This is your prosecutor, probably the biggest case of his life. He's getting ready to deliver closing arguments, and he ain't sleeping because he's afraid somebody's going to kill him. Mm-hmm. And wow. So he had to show up on Monday, and I'll be honest, he didn't do great in closing. Because I'd watched him throughout the trial. And I told him this. I said, "You didn't do great, but hell," I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss.
You're all right.
I think I probably said one.
I mean, bleep that out if I can. But my preacher don't like it when I cuss. But I said, "Man, listen, you've been up all weekend worrying somebody going to shoot you." I said, "You did awesome compared with what you had against you." So that's the reason I tell that story. He would probably say, "I wish you hadn't told that." But I tell that to highlight what a good man he is. To be able to overcome the adversity of and maybe there was nothing to it. Maybe it was an innocent conversation. But I felt like when Brooks Houck hung up that phone, he was like, "Shut up, dummy, you're talking too much."
Well, and you would think that somebody that works in law enforcement would know and immediately think of that too.
Yeah. But I think he's trying to tell his buddy, "We got you back here." You know,
maybe.
I think you're right.
Maybe
I would have taken extreme precautions on him and the judge, and
we tightened security up. I called the judge. I said, "Judge, here's what's up." Imagine. And he was like, and I worried about the judge because judge is like, "I darned if they want me, they got me. I live right here in Nelson County." I'm like, "Judge, that ain't really what I want to hear." But anyway, he's a heck of a good guy too, man. I mean, just good public servants, man. You don't hear these stories. You only hear when there's corruption or when there's something kind of awry. But these dudes are just good men who want to do the right thing. They put themselves in harm's way, and that's the reason I tell that. I hope I'm not divulging anything but that happened. It's in our rear view. I don't think it matters. But Shane Young showed up, did closing arguments on that Monday, literally probably had zero sleep, had moved his wife and kids out of there. Now, his wife, Teresa, is his co-counsel. She did a heck of a job, too.
That's awesome.
And then Jim Lukowski, he's a retired prosecutor and I'll tell you, again, bragging on these people. He's a retired prosecutor from Jefferson County. He's in his 70s, Jim of a fella. He donated his time for this case.
Wow.
He got paid nothing for this case. So you got the defense team, and I don't want to villainize them. They're doing their job. They made money, but they got paid well. And then you got the prosecution team, who one of the key the key dudes is donating his time.
Wow.
So that's the only reason I tell that story. I mean, I did. Maybe I over dramatized it. I hope I didn't.
No,
I don't want to cause undue alarm. But listen, when I heard that, my guy sent that to me. He said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I listened to it. I immediately hung up the phone. I said, "I'll be back with you shortly. Keep listening."
Yeah.
And I got on the phone, and everybody was like me. They were alarmed by that little interaction between the Houck boys.
Yeah, and you never know.
You don't
know who you don't know what
You don't ever know.
They could have been talking about anything but the abrupt hanging up lets me know I would have been on full alert.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I wouldn't, that would scare me.
Yeah. And I'm responsible for these people's
safety. Could you
safety.
imagine having to go back in there and do closing when you just had to move your family out of there and you're not exactly sure if you're going to make it out of the courtrum alive or out of the parking lot?
I took over, we transported the prosecutor, and defense knew about it. I mean, they knew about it. So it wasn't like we were trying to, slide the deck one way or another. I just wanted to make sure everybody was safe. And, but anyway, that's the reason I tell that story.
That's a great. That's a great.
Were there any
insight.
calls? I know I'm going back to the cell phone.
No, you go
My
ahead,
mind's just
Detective.
rolling.
Detective Thomas. We know why Doug Thomas has excelled in police work because you were here telling him what to do.
Hey, I took your office.
I know, yeah.
I told them all where to go and what to do.
Sounding board.
That was my job. I got paid to do it at one time. Right, Travis?
Yeah, I agree.
Told you where to go and what to do.
Somebody needs to.
Somebody had to dispatch it. Going back to the July 3rd and 4th, and the cell phone records. Were there any conversations, calls to or from Brooks and Nick during that 24-hour
went
period?
radio silent.
Completely.
Yeah,
Nothing
he
even
turned
earlier
his
in the
phone
day.
off. Now you can't say that. You can say, well, it just didn't hit him. It didn't hit any towers. But the Cellbrite expert or somebody, there was experts on both sides, but all agreed that it was likely it was just no record because it had been turned off.
No talking.
And
Well, there was word of a burner phone, and I don't know if I've heard that from a reporter, if that come through with Rosemary having a burner phone.
yeah, I don't know about. I don't recall
That didn't
that.
come through the...
I don't recall about that. And they really didn't look at the triangulation of the cell phones until like 2020 when the Attorney General's office got involved.
Tell me about let's go to the first trial. Mm-hmm. How long was it?
It was 4 days. It started on Tuesday
that's pretty
and ended
long
on Friday.
too, really,
It is.
and now his son was it at one time they were going to try him too, right? The son.
Yeah, he was tried with Brooks.
Oh, with
Yeah.
Brooks. Okay.
Yeah,
Stephen
Joey.
Lawson was tried first.
Yeah.
And then Brooks and Joey.
Okay. I got you.
Tried second. Yes.
The first trial, then. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry.
It was pretty cut and dry. I mean, the defense got up and opening arguments. Look, we're gonna go ahead and admit right now to tampering with evidence, and that was based on Steve Lawson admitting, post Miranda. Yeah, we moved the car. Yeah. I mean, the conspiracy was what they had a problem with.
Okay,
but I mean, I think if you move if you move the car in the murder, listen again. I'm an old dumb country boy, but it's going to be hard for you to convince me otherwise. You didn't know about the murder.
That's what's funny about this one. I think is how did they keep him from coming in? Because he was probably trying to lighten his sentence.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't want to speak for Shane on that, but I think Shane just got so tired of the back and the forth and the lies that he's like, nah, let's go with it.
Not risk
let's roll with it and see what happens.
Okay, because part of me looking at it is like, man, I want his testimony in against Brooks, and then, but if it was
if it goes to appeals, that might be something that they bring back in later.
Yeah,
his testimony.
All things will be different if it does. Be like, well, let's go. We also have another guilty party with this. Then it might be able to link up some later. So, man, what a wild 10 years really of just who knows what's going on. And then all of a sudden there's a trial and arrest and a trial and bang, it's like all in like
Yeah.
When did they make the arrest? Was that about this time last year, or was it?
Yeah, it was. It'd been, I don't know, sometime late 23, early 24, somewhere in there. I don't know the timeline.
How many times did you see like news footage? Karen, you especially, they've went out to the property and they've brought backhoes out here. I don't know how many holes they dug out there and looking.
Well, it's funny you say that. The defense brought in an expert, Denny Butler, who used to be a state representative, and he's a retired Metro detective. And he came in, he was their last witness, and they basically used him to point out all the near misses. And you all know how it is, lab reports. You send stuff in hoping for comparison. It doesn't happen, or the lab inconclusive.
Yeah.
Well, they brought Butler in to testify to all the inconclusives, all of that, to make it look like
They're just
all these countless hours of investigation, and they've yet to find a body. They've yet to find the smoking gun, and to try to basically eliminate and shortchange the investigation.
Yeah.
But and Brian Butler made the statement in closing. He said they're just throwing stuff on the wall and hoping it'll stick. Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff that stuck.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. I hope it don't get appealed. I'm just an old bailiff, court bailiff. My opinion don't matter. But you can't, if you do appeal it, there ain't nothing Brooks Houck can do. He wrote down 8 pages of a timeline on July the 3rd, and you've got countless witnesses that can come in and say, well, that didn't happen, and that didn't happen, and that didn't happen. You can argue the cell phone stuff. You can say, well, them coon hunters, it was raining, they don't know. That was some of the stuff. You can say the government wanted him arrested, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's Brooks Houck's testimony, not his testimony, but Brooks Houck's timeline, his alibi was awful.
But wasn't it more like a to-do list instead of I've done it list?
Yeah, it was kind of. He just thought of stuff that he had done over the last few weeks, and I guess he was hoping that John Snow, the detective, who did a good job. I felt like he did a good job. It's a big case, and he's to be commended for his work. And he had, he brought him in. This was before Nick called him and said, hey, man, get out of there. They're trying to hang you. I'm paraphrasing. But he wrote out his timeline, and his timeline was awful. And that's what the 2 ladies that I spoke to, the jury members, said, it was bad. It was just a bad timeline. Wow. So, but all the other little anomalies, like the flower pulling, and to me, that was like, ooh, some evil.
That's what first thing I was thinking.
Even if it wasn't evil, why would you not think she might come back?
Yeah, I agree.
That's, you knew she wouldn't come back, or you wouldn't have pulled the flowers up.
Man.
But this is a whodunit, and it's intriguing, but I think, look, I get it. I guess there's some statutory law or some case law or some precedent that's been set. Both defense teams cited it. Well, there's no crime scene, there's no body, there's no gun, you can't have a murder. And I almost wanted to get up and say, look, don't insult my intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years.
Well, she's gone. She
Yeah.
ain't coming back.
No.
I think the judge pointed that out to me, that it was she's deceased.
And I felt sorry for
We
the
do
family.
have a car that was her. That's not where it's supposed to be. We have some things.
And I'll say this to the family. I pulled Casey Ballard aside. That's the brother. Utmost respect for that guy. I pulled him aside before the defense team started on Steve Lawson, because I knew they were going to get up and they were just, they were going to do their job. Mm-hmm. I pulled him aside and I said, Casey, every emotion that you ever felt is going to come back to you when they start talking. And I said, you got to keep your folks under control. We've come too far for a mistrial. Mm-hmm. Lock it down. And he was crying, and he put his head on my shoulder, and he said, yes, sir, yes, sir. He said, this is so hard. That's just kind of people they are, man. They don't want no notoriety with this. I'm sure they'll get a book, a movie, I don't know, but they don't want it. They're just good country people looking for justice.
They just wanted justice.
Yeah. I think the whole thing.
They want to know what happened to their daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know how she picked up, up at the reporter,
Shay McAllister.
Shay did I wonder how that landed. I know murders and a lot of crazy stuff going on in Bardstown at the time, But I really don't think they were looking to be famous.
No.
They were just looking for help.
Looking right.
And she took it, Shay took it to a next level that, nobody could really. And who would have thought that,
Instrumental.
Yeah, and then they go into TV shows and
She was very
different things. So,
and her reporting was actually, it wasn't opinion. She went. You could tell that she actually investigated. She done investigative reporting.
She did.
She
She
did.
did. I mean, she was not. She tried. You could tell almost that she was wanting to make sure that she had no bias.
Yeah, I thought
she did her best to try to go talk to each one, but you can't help but probably with the mother, and when they interviewed her, and you could just hear the heartbreak, and then it was just so strange. Now I just want some resolve here in the other murders now.
Sure. But I think
Now
we
we
all
got
do.
one.
Which brings me back
I think we all
to
do. Yes, ma'am.
a gun that was.
Reporting for duty, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Detective
You're doing a
Thomas.
fine job. You're doing a fine job. Fine job. There was the gun that killed Tommy, Dad, Ballard.
That gun is in police evidence. The bullet that was found, and I don't know if this is public knowledge, and I don't know if I should say it, but I think everybody knows about it. But the bullet that killed Tommy has been analyzed with the rifle, they think, that came from Nick. You need 5 parameters to say, yep, that bullet came from that gun. And the expert that looked at it said, I can only give you 4 of the 5 parameters.
Jeez.
So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
guys,
close.
that's evidence, we've dealt with that our whole careers.
Yeah.
The near misses.
Yeah.
Do you go with 4 out of 5? What would a grand jury say? I don't know. I don't want to influence anybody, but that's what I know.
That's
I think
better
that's
than
public
50%.
knowledge. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean,
I think there's more.
I think it's awful. I think it's awful that Tommy Ballard was assassinated standing next to his grandson.
Yes.
That's just pure evil.
Now,
I mean, that's just pure evil.
it would have to be. I don't think it was a hunting accident.
No, I don't. I think they just threw that out there to try to.
But I think it was
avoid
someone
some civil
inside
unrest.
that knew where he was hunting, when he was hunting, and
Well, there's a lot of planning that's went into each of these things, and I don't know that the teacher and her daughter. I don't know that that's connected. I don't know.
I don't know that
I don't
it is
think
either.
that it is,
I
but I
don't
don't
think
want
it
to say
is
it ain't. I'll let the powers
With
that
that,
be that
you would think a
investigate that.
crime like that, evidence would have been left, fingerprints, trace, something. And
We know
nothing.
Tommy Ballard's sister was murdered in the 1970s. And I think
Didn't know that.
Yeah, that one in Nelson County. So I think Nelson may have been Washington, but I think Nelson County. Yeah, she was murdered.
Wow.
I think they arrested a man in that case. But yeah, I mean, this poor family, man, the
Wow, they
heartache
went
that
through.
they've had to endure. And her Crystal's daughters, of course, they're grown now, and I mean, almost grown. I mean, what they've had to put up with, and
boys,
I was
12,
I was
13?
glad to see. I mean, I don't. I've been in Nelson County some, and I don't know a few people there, but I was glad to see. And again, this is unprecedented. The town lined up to greet them as they came back through.
I saw a
Courthouse
photo
Square.
of maybe the courthouse there lit up
Yeah.
in pink.
I mean,
yeah.
I think everybody knows that the verdict was correct,
Yeah.
and now we're celebrating a belief in our justice system.
Yeah. We
You know,
needed that.
we
needed
did.
these wins.
Well, then, we as police officers, we get defeated. We get over it, and but now the public needed to see that our justice system, we got our problems, but it's still the best justice system in the world.
Absolutely. Best country in the world.
We got people lining up to get in this country because they want a right to a fair trial. You don't get that in Mexico.
No.
It's whoever the cartel wants to kill that day. But here, you got representation. So hey, we complain about it. I've complained about it, but the reality is we got a good justice system.
Nick was mentioned a lot, and even Amber Bowman, his girlfriend, was a
Right.
witness.
Right.
What did you think about her testimony?
I thought she did a good job. She's very nervous. Her dad was also supposed to testify. He ended up not testifying. I guess they felt like they made their points with Amber the prosecution. But they brought Amber in to testify that, where was Nick? She said, I don't know. I called him 15 times. He didn't answer. Went straight to voicemail. And, my dad, because there was a timeline, they had to be out. They had sold their house or had rented the house that they were in, and they were moving to another one, a fixer-upper. Okay. She wasn't happy about it. She admitted that on the stand. She said, I wasn't happy about it, and I really wasn't happy that he's supposed to help me and my dad move, and he was nowhere to be found.
Was this on the...
This was July the 3rd, going into July the 4th. So she got up and testified to that. I don't think they're still together, but I mean, that's to me pretty compelling evidence that brother was probably involved. Somewhere. Or, I mean, it's circumstantial, but a lot of this is anyway.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm assuming that was not normal for him to do that.
No. Well, the prosecutor said, look, here he is, a police officer. We're all police officers. We're not really ever off duty. Correct. So for us to be away from our phone, it's kind of significant. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. I feel weird, not having it on, or if my battery gets like, oh gosh, I got to get this plugged up. Yeah. You don't want to miss that call or want to miss the, so especially.
But it's, I mean, it was
interesting. Not with your wife or your significant other, you definitely want to be able to make sure it's on and where you need. So
I was proud of my band of merry men. Three of them, because Warren County SO couldn't really provide any other than the drone. They couldn't really provide physical security for the parking lot. And again, my thoughts on parking lots. And I had three of my guys were in the heat. It was hot. And those guys are out there, making sure everybody's safe in the parking lot, getting everybody in. What I wanted to avoid was a witness showing up in a parking lot and meandering around the parking lot, not knowing where to go. I'm not trying to make this more than what it is, but I wanted, as soon as they arrived on the property, I wanted one of my people to get them out of their car and get them in the door, screen them, and then get them upstairs where they need to go. Yeah. And it worked flawlessly. And that's not me. That's my people that did a great job.
One of the weirdest things.
And that's a big deal. It is a big deal when you've got a witness in this large of a case.
We got the defense. We did the same thing for the defense. We let them park in the back of the courthouse, and we got them in the back door. And the prosecutors, wanted to make sure everybody was safe, because there had been instances where some of the family had been some altercations with some former attorneys. So, I didn't want anybody getting hurt. So, again, this ain't about me, but there was, we tried to make sure everybody was safe.
So one of the weirdest things, being involved in some decently big trials, nothing on this, but locally having to be witnesses on a trial and getting sent in to the other, usually if there's a lot of people, a lot of witnesses, we've sat together, and it is a weird feeling going, I'm on, then the looks that they give, and then it's a weird, so was y'all able to separate the side, the witnesses, or are they all?
We trained,
'cause that's a tough.
Well, we train nonverbal, watch the, We had an instance where a detective got up and he got out of the jury box and he walked around in front of the jury box to point to something on the TV, which was positioned behind him. Well, his gun, how the blazer has a cut in the back. Mm-hmm. Well, his gun had got in that cut and his gun was exposed. Yeah. And he swirled around with his end up. He was right in front of Brooks Houck. So me and my two boys that saw it, we immediately got on our feet. Now, we didn't make a big deal about it, but we got on our feet so we could be vigilant to address it. But the gun was almost within arm's reach of Brooks Houck. Those are little things that we try to watch out for. The detective, he just didn't, he was focused on the evidence and presenting it to the jury. Mm-hmm. He had no idea his gun was exposed at the back of his jacket. But little stuff like that to us is paramount. But we watch, we call it scripting. Mm-hmm. We watch the defendant. We watch their eyes, where their hands. When we walk by, are they looking at our gun? I mean, if you'll remember, a few years ago in Harlan County, when ATF took a guy down there. Remember the guy who put the bombs in the cell phone camera or in the remote cameras?
Yeah.
Well, see, part of his deal was, I'll take you back to the woods and show you where the other cameras are. Well, that was nothing more than a ploy for him to go out there and go after a gun, and they shot and killed him.
Yeah.
So I have to think about, I have that knowledge going in, so I have to plan for that contingency. I'm not saying Brooks Houck was going to do that, but I have to plan that if he would. So there's just a lot of little things that come into play that
How many witnesses do you think testified in this?
I want to say probably 55 or 60.
I was saying that because
probably over 60 if
when
you
you
count
have that
defense
many
witnesses.
witnesses, they can't be in the courtroom until they're they're called, and there's not a lot of room to put them folks. I know they probably came at different days, but the times I've had that, it's only been like a 1-2 day jury or
How
a
many
trial.
witnesses did you have in a certain day?
The
most.
Patty Hall she was the victim's advocate, did a remarkable job, and just a great lady. She kind of coordinated that. She was talking with Shane, the prosecutor, every day, and they were kind of planning ahead. Okay, we'll probably make it to this point. So kudos to them on that. They handled that. We just made sure they got in and out okay, but they kind of managed that.
Because defense is calling these, all right, prosecution call. Yeah. And I know you got days, but like when it's a 1-2 dayer and all the witnesses are the defense and they're all together. Yeah, that's some strange times in there.
Yeah, I mean,
in the federal system, we have separate rooms for the defense.
They had that.
That's good because we were all just in the other courtroom, just sitting there like.
We had an instance in the first trial, and again, I like Shane, and I ended up developing a likeness for the defense attorney for Steve Lawson. Darren's his first name. I'd have to go back and look, but anyway, what his last name is. But he and Shane, they didn't like each other, and you could tell. And they were. Darren had an issue, and he jumped up and he said, "Your Honor, he can't do that." And and Shane turned the wheel around at him, and I could just tell, Well, they went to the bench. And the judge kind of come up out of his seat to tell him to settle down, and they wouldn't listen to him. So I just kind of walked up there between them. I put my arm around both of them, and I politely turned them toward the judge. But, emotions run high. Yeah. And I didn't want nobody getting, I didn't want nobody fisticuffing there. So it's a very insignificant thing I did, but I just put my arm around both of them and kind of turned them, okay, boys, settle down now. It's okay. Shane laughed about it later, and so did Darren. But, Darren did a good job. He and a guy by the name of Zach Buckler out of Lexington represented Steve Lawson, and they did a good job. Good. I mean, that's, I have to say.
All you want is a fair trial. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. You want good representation, and they had it. And, there may be some things that get appealed, but it won't be because it was insufficient defense.
Right.
Every one of those defense attorneys and their staff were very professional.
Good. I'm hoping this is put to rest. I'm hoping, at least this section of it. The problem is there's 4 more that we know of, right? And then maybe more. I think there was a body found in another county that about the same time.
I don't know. It's certainly, we're hoping for some closure for some more than just this. So we'll see what happens.
Going back to the jurors, the judge allowed them to ask questions too.
He did. That's kind of it's more common than what I knew. And it's all above board. When a witness would get on the stand, the jury could write down a question on a piece of paper. They would hand it to the bailiff, and because the judge would always say, any questions of the witness from the jury. And if they had a question, they'd raise their paper. The bailiff would go get it, take it to the judge. The defense and the prosecution would come, the white noise, and they would read the question to each other and talk about it. And if it was an admissible question, then he would ask it to the witness. And there were some good questions, and you can kind of tell what the jury's thinking by the way they asked the question. Yeah. That was another thing. And another something silly.
Probably defense was probably like, oh gosh.
Another something silly that we do, and I don't know. You'll probably think we're a bunch of corny bailiffs, and I'd say Doug Thomas does it too, but. It's just when you're locked up in the courthouse all day, you just find things to entertain yourself. But we try to pick. I won't say we bet, but we try to pick who the foreman of the jury's going to be. Yeah. You study human behavior. Mm-hmm. Who makes them laugh? You know, who opens the door for the ladies? Who does the little things that on vote day? Who's, you know, and so I want to brag.
Who's the
I
natural
did
leader?
naturally pick the foreman of the jury. I mean,
You won?
I won. Yeah, I won. I pointed it out to my boys a time or two, too. But,
Do you all
yeah.
usually, I mean,
Do you do, actually it happened today about who's going to be the grand jury for me.
Did you pick it?
I didn't pick it, but they Drew said, "Who do you think it should be?" I said, "What do you got?" I said, "I think it should be some farmer somewhere."
Yeah.
We don't have no farmers. I said, "Well, what do you got?" then?" I said, "Really? No."
I mean, you know, it's just, we all do it as cops. Most time we do it, we don't even realize we're doing it. But it's just studying human behavior and their actions and interaction with others. And, you know, well, that's a leader, that's not a leader.
Well, you can usually, when they come through there, you can almost pick them out.
Yeah.
Just how they carry themselves, and just like you said, the little things that they do. So yeah, it's
interesting.
It is.
But
So the jury was pretty attentive. Sounds
very
like. Sounds like they were
very.
very.
There was one juror member that was kind of asleep, young fella, and he didn't make the final cut. He got let go in the you know, they did 15 sat through the duration of the trial, but 3 were cut the morning of, and
so you had 3 alternates.
Yeah, 3 alternates. So
how was jury selection in that? Was it pretty?
took a whole day.
The air of it was really.
Yeah, it was. Now in the Lawson, the first trial, we were ready to open in arguments day 1 after lunch.
Wow.
You know, and typically that's the way most trials go. You know, you got your jury selection, then have lunch, and then come back, and away we go. But now on the Houck trial, it took all day, and we started the following day on openings.
Wow. Now, do they do like an individual there with the?
Yeah, kind of. They did a lot of that, more so in the Houck.
Do they separate them?
Yeah, there was some separation. He split them up into groups and had a certain group come back at a certain time, and there was a lot of white noise that day. He didn't want one witness hearing what another witness said and the reason why they'd formed their opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget, I was sitting in a jury trial one time, and the old boy spoke up when the judge asked him, "Do you know the police officer?" He said, "Yeah, I know him. If he said it, it's true." So, you know, judges try to keep that blurt from that admonition from coming out. They try to control that. But yeah, it's I mean, I thought Judge Sam handled it very well. He put a lot of thought into it, you know, and he's a Nelson County guy, and he loves Nelson County, and you know, he knows people are talking about his county.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a great job. I complimented him several times, and we were texting today. I mean, he's a friend of mine now, and I got a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. I remember Lisa. She was getting ready to. She was on federal jury duty, and she knows
making big bucks.
Yeah, what they make? $20?
Oh no, no.
It's 80. Man.
It's about
It'd be good just to get a job as a professional juror in the federal system.
She was there, and they were like, "Do you know any of the prosecutors here?" Well, I know the USAA there. I know him, and then I know the witness. I mean, it was prison, but they're like, "Well, how do you know?" Well, I went to high school with him, and that's my cousin's. Yeah. Well, when you went to high school, did you all? I was like, they were really like, well, did y'all date?
Or it gets personal sometimes.
Yeah,
they study. Wow. I mean, both sides study. They get on Facebook account. They try to get an idea for what you're thinking, and you know, they do their due diligence.
I just never get. I've never been called to jury duty. So
You will now.
I've got the letter from the feds.
I have to.
And did all the questionnaire stuff, and I've never. And I would love to do it, actually. I think it would be.
I think I told Drew today, I said, if I had to sit on a jury, that I would want to be on the grand jury.
Yeah.
That's where you get the most, to me.
It's quick, too.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Mama, you got any other questions?
I think you've covered a lot. I think you've done great.
Chief going to chime
Brooks. For those that don't know, what's the motive that he had? The or a theory that maybe
The only thing that was ever come out was he made a couple statements that he wouldn't lose Eli.
okay.
I think the thinking was if he separated from Crystal that she'd get custody of the kid and he'd never see him again. I'm saying by now he's probably wishing he'd have went the child support route.
Yeah.
Was she not? She was suspecting him of courting on her or cheating on her, correct? Or
Yeah, I don't know.
something?
That never really came out. I don't know. I mean, I don't really.
think
It's a
McAllister-
motive somewhere.
I don't know if that's good.
She was the bookkeeper for his operation, and there's been some allegation that maybe he had some corrupt stuff going on. I don't know that that's ever been proven.
That's what they brought up in the podcast. Was that there
But
was
now-
some.
I think
Look
she
at the
overheard
hooks
some
and stuff.
conversations between the brothers that might have had to do something with something else.
That's
That's
what
Man.
what
I
And
suspected.
I
It.
really
Maybe
need to
she
believe that
knew
it's a little
something
bit bigger
more.
than
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe
Other
she knew
stuff
something
is-
that
yeah.
more than what
Nobody
anybody
spoke
knows she knew.
in sentencing for Brooks or Joy Lawson.
Wow.
The verdict was delivered, and I saw no emotion
None.
from the mama. The sister was a little taken back, but not. Her husband sat there and chewed his gum. You know, and I mean,
Do you think it's plausible somewhere down the road that Mama and them could be?
it's plausible. I think it's easy.
Just
They're
the stuff
unindicted
that
co-conspirators now,
Right.
Yeah.
But could they?
and they're still
indict that
investigating
later?
those other murders. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say for sure. I don't want to say I'm in the know. I guess I got an opinion like you all do.
I just love for there to be for everybody involved, for Jason, his family, for those two, the mother daughter. I just like to have some justice done
Justice.
and some resolve. So that's all I got. What a great man!
I
The insight.
probably
Very interesting.
put people to sleep listening
No,
to me.
this is-
No,
Very-
very
yeah.
interesting. Very interesting. And you being there, you actually witnessing as security in the courtroom, because none of this was televised. None of this, you had reports, but
And I'm partly to blame on that because I was in
I
judge's
think it's
ear
right. I think it's the
very
right
early
call.
on.
that's probably
Now he
probably
cited
is.
some other reasons, which I'm fine with, but I told him just let's not allow no cameras in the courtroom.
Just
And he said, Darren, I've never not allowed that to happen. I said, I understand that, but let's just on this one. And then he did. He told them and the media followed him, and he said this has turned into a circus. I've never seen anything like this. I think he testified, or not testified. I think he quoted in his hearing that he had been involved in something like over 10,000 cases, and he said I've never seen one rise to the level of circus that this one has.
Yeah,
rose
it could
to.
have easily turned into O.J. Simpson type.
Yeah, I mean, there's
deal.
no.
Yeah, it could
Well,
be.
let's not.
With
Let's
some
yeah.
other
Let's
people.
not
No
let
need
the
for
people know
theatrics.
who the witnesses are or who the victims are.
Yeah.
Let's keep that as. I mean, I know
like
it's
that, yeah.
public record eventually, but while it's happening, let's. And it did kind of take the wind out of the sails of the media. I learned a lot
It
about
did.
the media during that time because there were no big trucks sitting outside. They would get. They would get pictures of the lobby and the courtroom as it was empty for reference, and then you'll like this story, and we can end with this. But they had a sketch artist come in, and I guess I'm kind of a weirdo. I thought it'd be pretty cool to have a sketch artist of them draw me. I'm another court bailiff. I thought it'd be pretty cool. I want her to be me and draw me, and I'm like,
Painting like one of
Well-
the French girls.
she was a Titanic. She was a witness, or she was a Western student, and and I guess I'm sure she got paid handsomely for her services because a lot of those news outlets, they paid her, I'm sure, so they could have reference when they were talking about who testified and who did this. Well, about midway through the first week, I went up to her and I said, "Hey, would you draw me?" I mean, this poor girl ain't got no personality. She's all business, and she wouldn't draw, and she had a book up in front of her face like she wasn't paying attention to the most historic trial in
in the last
30 years,
Yeah.
And so I said, "Hey, would you consider drawing me?" She said, "I only draw important people." So listen, anytime old Darren gets to thinking he's kind of important, now my mind goes back to that moment. Well, I'm not important.
You go up to Kings Island,
Yeah, I go.
and you'll be important to somebody there for about $20.
I'll wear my bailiff uniform. Hey, I'll get an action photo. But yeah, that's sure enough. She said, "You're not important." So I only draw important people. And you know what? She didn't even laugh when she said it. little tidbits of data I processed to really, I really am. Okay, thank you, man. Have a safe day. Oh my God. But yeah, it's been good hanging out with you all.
All right, the next one.
This has been great.
Hey, I love these.
Yeah,
These
man,
are
let's
fun.
do it. You know, I'll tell
We
you
got
what.
some other. I don't know what'll be bigger. The next one coming. You never know.
Maybe. You know, I don't
You
know.
can't ever
That'll be a
tell.
wild trial.
When's it expected?
Well, you know, I haven't heard. He was due to have his competency hearing on June the 27th. And Judge Coron felt like it'd be 2, 3, 4 weeks before he got word. And he said he would let me know because the initial hearings will take place in Whitesburg.
Yeah.
But I know there will be a change of venue. Feel like
yeah.
there will. And
You think they'll move it all the way to Bowling Green?
I don't know.
Have you
I don't-
moved
That's a long
along?
way.
The
That's
only
a
reason
4-hour
I
drive.
said Bowling Green, and I should clarify, I don't have any inside information for anybody that's listening. The only reason I said Bowling Green because you got Jackie Steele as the prosecutor, and you got Jeremy Bartley as the defense attorney,
Yeah.
and that's where they moved Logan's trial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just assuming that they would be okay with that venue location.
Probably.
And it's a good place to have a trial. You got plenty of hotels. It's a good courtroom. You got good security.
Neutral ground.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you got places to eat, so
Yeah.
it's a good town to have.
It
Now,
is.
I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything. Judge Coron hasn't said where it's going to be, but Judge Coron, he's a good man. He'll do a great job. He'll manage it appropriately, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That'll be
So-
coming soon.
Yeah.
That'll be a wild one. So
Interesting. Very
Another big
interesting.
trial coming up. Whitley County. You remember the zip tie case? You know where the 3 people were found murdered with
Yes.
zip tied around
Yes.
their throat and just zip tied to death and
Yes.
bound. That's going to trial. That guy was ruled incompetent to stand trial, so it'll be a bench trial, and that's coming up. That's coming up this fall, and Judge Winchester has asked us to come down and assist. So
That'll be a good one.
maybe
Yeah.
I can come in and give you some insight on that. And I
That would
remember
be
when
great.
that
that'll be a
what an
that'll be a
awful
wild.
way. And there was like a teenage boy that was killed in
Yeah.
that one, man. That was just awful. That was awful.
Yeah, look at it.
But anyway, we'll see
That'd
what
be fun.
happens.
We've got a lot going on.
There's enough wisdom at this table excluding me to run a small country. That's just what I'd say.
Straight into
Right
the
to the
ground.
ground.
Well, all hearts and minds clear.
All right.
Catch us on the next one.